Today we're going to be building a standing desk. And if you think calluses are cool, well, kind of cool anyway. Because life is more fulfilling when you're building, fixing, and restoring things, then you're in the right place. You got a home here. So I'm going to tell you what you're going to see in today's video. First, you're going to see a mini movie, and I've embedded a video within a video to help illustrate the problem that I'm facing. So I think it's kind of fun. I think you'll enjoy it. And it's a video within a video. I'm not sure if you can even do that. I don't know if that's allowed. So, second thing you're going to see is my assembling the Jarvis standing desk. And I'll include a link in the description so you can go check that out. Lastly, I really like butcher block style surfaces. I think they're pretty neat. And for the customized top, I made a butcher block style top. So if you'll stick around to the end, I'll show you how I did that. And then lastly, I want to hear from you. What do you think about standing desks? Do you have one? Maybe you like it, maybe you don't like it. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comments. So I appreciate you guys sticking around. Yippee-ki-yay. Yeah, so if you stick around to the end, I'm going to show you the tips and tricks for how to do your own butcher block style top. But this is the Jarvis desk frame by a company called Fully, and the instructions were fairly intuitive. My only complaint was that if you're doing a custom desktop like this, they kind of made that part of the instructions an afterthought. And in my case, I went to almost the very end and realized, oops, I got to start over. But I think there are a lot of health benefits. At least you'll find a lot of health benefits about using standing desks online. And I don't know that I'm completely sold on it, but I do think we don't know enough about the connection between our mental state and our physical state, our health state. So maybe there's a placebo effect at a minimum that if you believe it, it's going to help you. So yeah, the butcher block that I got was actually a salvage from a previous video, and I'll put a link up here to show you where I got that from. But it was 16 feet long and had all these pocket screws in it, and I'll show you at the end how I did that. But the desk frame would only accommodate a 7-foot long desk. So in this case, I had to take some measurements that were 7 feet and take out the applicable pocket screws so that I could make my cut. And so I just took those out, and I'll show you at the end how to do the pocket screws. So after measuring 7 feet, I drew a line and I made my cut. And unfortunately, this is not going to be quite deep enough for a desk, so I knew I was going to have to add on some additional wood to make it deep enough to accommodate a desk. And so I set up a table and chair and pretended like I was working here so I could figure out how much longer, or deeper I should say, I should make the desk. And then basically using the offcut, I cut some additional wood out, and then I was going to join that back up to the original cut so I'd have a desk that was deep enough. So here's what the final glue up process looks like with the new pocket screws. I'm going to cover this at the end of the video, and you can see from the side it's not perfectly level, and I'm going to cover that at the end as well. Hey, it's really rare I get to use this new overhead camera mount, and I put that one together in a video, and I'll put a link up here to reference that video. But This is a project where I have a great use case for. So after everything dried, then I was able to start sanding. I used a belt sander with a 36 grit sandpaper, which is about as coarse as I could get. And when you don't have a planer that's wide enough to accommodate a desktop this wide, that's kind of the cheater method that I'm using to get everything as flat as possible. So if there's any high spots, just kind of keep going over them again and again until basically everything is flat. So don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. And you can see that there's a pretty dramatic difference between the before and after. I mean, a lot of that is just dirt and grime, but just to get everything ready for polyurethane, this was the process I went through, and I used increasingly higher levels of grit. It had really aged pretty well. And this is what it looked like before I did any sanding to it, so you can really see the contrast here. I really like polyurethane on wood, and I like to use the spray-on variety. This is a clear gloss, and whenever I use polyurethane, I really try to make it so shiny that I can practically see my reflection in the wood. And so, yeah, I sanded everything down to a 220 level grit, and then I applied the first coat of polyurethane, and then I increased the levels of grit after each coat of polyurethane up to 1500. So I think it was like 220 and then 400 and then 600, 800 and then 1500. But between each coat, they don't take nearly as long, and you can see a dramatic difference. It's starting to really shine up like a mirror, so I'm loving it. And just to try to prevent sagging, mainly on the front edge, I added this aluminum angle iron here, and I just measured it out the length of the desk and then made a mark using a screw, and then took it over to the chop saw and cut it out. And here I am cutting it out on the chop saw, and then I was able to take it over. I flipped the desk upside down and then placed the aluminum angle iron down there, and then I drilled some holes using a metal bit, and then just took some wood screws and then screwed everything in. So that'll hopefully prevent any future sagging. And then after I put it on the desk frame, here you can see it. You can almost see my reflection as I'm filming it. It turned out really pretty, and I'm very happy with it, very smooth. So yeah, feeling pretty good about it. Hey guys, so I'd be remiss if I didn't show you what the final setup looks like. So yeah, here it is, and you can see in this room it's got windows that are set up rather high, and so I want to take advantage of being able to look outside while I was working. And if I was down low, I wouldn't be able to look out. But this is the final setup. Again, this company has got all kinds of gadgets and arm stands for monitors and drawers you can add on and things like that. So it's not a paid endorsement. I'm not getting any payment for that. But yeah, I'm liking it so far. Let me show you how it goes up and down. And it's even got presets, so you can hit a number and it'll go to your set limit automatically. And I added casters to it. That was an add-on, but that way if I want to move it around. The future plans for this office, I've got a couple of things I wanted to point out because you're very likely to see them in an upcoming video. But one is a banker's chair, and yeah, these things can sell for hundreds of dollars. And I found one off Etsy and restored it, but it doesn't have a seat, so I'll point it out. So it's got everything but the seat. And so to make that shape, I could probably use a jigsaw, but since I had a birthday coming up, I asked for a bandsaw, and I got that. So I'm gonna try to use that to create the seat. And then we've also got these mirrorized closet doors, and so that particular space we want to try converting it into a cloffice, which I'd never heard that term before, but It's a closet office, and so stuff like file cabinets and routers, printers, things like that can go in that space. So yeah, we've got some future plans there. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys. So I'm gonna give you guys some tips and tricks for how to do a butcher block counter without special joinery and without a thickness planer. So there's a more common method, and then really my method on this particular project, which was pretty unconventional, I have to say. So if you go to a big box store, you can pick up oak, and there's probably other hardwoods as well. Oak falls into that category of a hardwood. You can see my dog in the background. But anyway, it's not quite 2 inches square, and yeah, you can pick this stuff up at the big box store. And basically, for the conventional method, is just take some glue, and you're going to glue down one side like that. Obviously not at this angle, and then you're going to cut these pieces, to various lengths. So just to illustrate, I've got one that's about half the size of the other one, and so they'll have staggering, blocks, if you will. You glue them together, and then grab, I call these trigger clamps. I don't know if that's the right word for them, but after you've got them glued up, then, and this is just to illustrate here, but you'll kind of clamp this together, put it on a flat surface that's level, and once you got it, everything's level like that, then you've got basically the makings of a butcher block counter, and you want to let it dry. And I use, hang on, I use this Tight Bond, which you can pick up in a big box store. This is like exterior, interior. I don't know if that's going to be required, but it's extra strong, and I'm sure all of them are fine. But then after you let it dry, then you've got obviously a big space here, and you're just going to sand like crazy if you don't have a thickness planer. And sometimes really don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. And probably to the naked eye, you're not going to be able to tell if there's, maybe if it's not perfectly flat. But, if it's for a countertop, probably it's fine. It just depends on your needs, but you can probably get away with a belt sander and some really strong, thick grit, like 36 grit would be recommended, and then just keep moving up to higher and higher levels of grit, and you've got really the makings of a butcher block counter without any special equipment. And just need a belt sander and a trigger clamp, which I showed you, and then I'm gonna turn the camera around and then show you the method that I used on this and why I use this method. So bear with me. All right, so for this particular project, for the desktop, I used a thinner piece of oak, but it was wider. So in a way, I was just trying to get, oak can be fairly expensive, so I was trying to get as much surface without having to pay high dollar, and it would be a little bit lighter. I wouldn't have a really heavy desktop, so I used something that was thinner. Obviously with something that thin, if you doesn't have as much surface area here, so if I were to glue two pieces together, it's just not going to be as strong because there's just not as much surface area there to work with. So I had to use some joinery to do that, and the joinery that I used it's this little tool here, and I have it on a piece of plywood because I hang it in my shop, but it's a company called Craig, and they make pocket screw type of joinery equipment. And so this is what I use. Basically, you're going to take the piece of wood and you're going to stick it in there and then clamp it down. And then you're going to take a drill with a bit, and I think it comes with this bit, but it's for making pocket screws. And then you just take it and you drill inside there, and you'll create a very, very shallow hole. And then inside that hole, guess what? They make pocket screws, and for this purpose. And they have very sort of coarse threads on here. I don't know if you can see that. So it really helps to join the pieces together. And so, yeah, I'll do one real quick here and show you what that looks like. And I gotta say, like, I've tried using the cordless drills for this type of project, and I find they don't have enough horsepower, to be honest with you. So I tend to use the corded drill. And I'll hold this up so if you can see it, but it's got a little hole there specifically for this pocket screw. And lastly, these pocket screws require a special bit, and it's kind of got a square, I don't know if you can see it, it's got a square tip to it. Trying to show that. Kind of hard to see there, but anyway, then so now you've got one piece of oak, you know, the flatter, thinner kind. Your next piece, you're obviously going to cut them, you're going to stagger them just like you did with the square variety. And then take your trigger clamp. Now again, this is a small version because I'm just trying to illustrate what you're trying to do, but you know, these come in much wider varieties. And then you're gonna, I'll pan down in a second. So you can see I've used the trigger clamp the same way as the block style oak, but they're just widthways. And then take this bit and this pocket screw and there you go. Now, if I was doing this as a profession, then probably having this sort of unsightly on the bottom of a surface, but a countertop, you're not going to see that. And you know, for my own needs, I'm not going to let good enough, or perfect I should say, get in the way of good enough. And yeah, you've got it. So you just keep staggering them and keep doing it, and you've got your own butcher block countertop. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thanks for sticking around.